Share International, David and Pat, we're talking about their organization and this idea of the Maitreya. Just off the top of my head, my thoughts are that it seems to me that the Maitreya, from what you're talking about, there's no set moral and ethical code here. Like the Torah, and I happen to be Jewish, that has, God is a lawgiver, gave a set of moral and ethical principles by which you measure your life. What is permissible, what is forbidden. There's separations, all the way from the very beginning when God separated the heavens from the earth. Mm-hmm. There's a whole elaborate series of that going all the way through the book, and there's a separation between the sacred and the profane in terms of the way we behave. Now again, we are set out to then have free will and relate to that or not relate to it in our own way, but nevertheless, the code is immutable and the code is beyond the manipulation of human beings, which is why it's so powerful. Mm-hmm. I don't get the sense, or correct me if I'm wrong, or please enlighten me, with regard to your belief system's presentation of a moral and ethical code.
Wow. Remember too, it's Maitreya is a name, not a noun. You could say the world teacher, but his literal personal name is Maitreya. But that's a good question you brought up, and I'm glad you mentioned that because this is much broader and inclusive. When you have the Old Testament and the New Testament, you have the authoritarian and the vengeful and the angry God and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But this is more universal, and since it encompasses all faiths and people of no faiths, it covers everyone, and all the major religions have the same principles.
Well, you've told me you haven't answered the question directly here.
Oh, go.
Which is fine. You've told me it covers everyone. What is it that's covering everyone? Is there a moral and ethical set of principles that I can really say? Like the Torah really tells you, mm-hmm. This is permitted, this is forbidden. This is okay, this isn't okay. And so my way of thinking...
And the Catholic Church has the Ten Commandments.
The Catholic Church...
So it's already laid down.
The Christian faith completely embraced the Torah. Yes. Jesus himself said, not a thing will be changed in the laws mm-hmm. that were given by God. So, you have this, and this is the basis upon which Western civilization was built. Now again, I'm not here to criticize Eastern civilization. That's a different deal, and that's related, I think, because Abraham gave gifts to the East. I mean, they took a lot of that moral and ethical code. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, there is a set moral and ethical code by which individuals and nations can function. And it does separate nations, and it separates individuals into their own unique entities. Now, you say that this is, I think you David, made reference to this being part of the Piscean age, which is the age of the individual.
Leaving.
And you're saying we're leaving that age, we're entering into the age of Aquarius. And this isn't the Fifth Dimension we're talking about.
That's right.
I think they were a great band, by the way. But,
me too.
But what do you see as this age of Aquarius? Are we stepping away from individual identity and individual understanding of life under a lawgiver? I mean, what is it about?
What part of it is about was typified in one of Ben Crem's book's titles, Unity in Diversity. That's the keynote of the Aquarian age. You still have the diversity of which you spoke, and yet everyone's working together. So that individuality will not be lost. This is a paradox, Chuck, and humans hate paradoxes, so they don't like to deal with it. But we are a walking paradox, so we need to learn how to grasp these things. All the principles you talked about, all that's best in all of these traditions will be preserved. So it's the same principles going forward, but in the Aquarian age, it's more group activity rather than a leader and a bunch of followers. You've seen those bumper stickers that say, when the group leads, the leaders will follow, type of. Mm-hmm. That's the notion of the Aquarian age. This is about groups, not individuals, and all that was good and important and of value in the Piscean age will be preserved. It's just that we will become less selfish, so to speak, and more enlightened.
I think that the model of the American Republic has been one where we don't have strong leaders. We have a limited government. The president has very proscribed powers. One of the things that makes me uncomfortable about this President Obama administration is some of this cult-like following that he engendered early on, no longer, but this idea that he's going to change and hope in the world. That's not an American concept. Our concept is that the individual changes himself, his own life, and that there's no big charismatic leader. The presidency was very limited up until recently because it became a superpowered institution starting in the 20th century. And so I think that you seem to be halfway there with that. You're saying there'll be no more leader-type system.
In a sense. And you brought up something else interesting that we forgot to mention. These Aquarian energies started incoming in 1675. So the U.S. has those Aquarian attributes built into it because it didn't come about till 1776. So yes, it is more groups than individuals, and this will be preserved. You won't have communism. You will continue to have capitalism. We'll just make certain that everyone, as we said, has a roof over their head, no more homelessness, no more hunger, proper education, proper health care, politically and socially and racially, justice and equality, and of course, then the broader picture, world peace and ecological restoration.
We have to go back to the stock market for that.
Oh, that's
stock
right.
market,
I forgot
yeah,
to mention.
Please.
And all I can say is that I think that Maitreya says and Ben says the stock market is the dirtiest gambling house ever created. And he means that people are making money from nothing. They're literally becoming billionaires from nothing. And the other people that have no money are becoming so poor that we have no middle class left anymore. The stock market, whether it continues or not, I don't know. But
we have
certainly
that topic has grabbed a caller. We have a caller on the line. Hello.
Hello. I would like to know, where is this going to be at? Are you guys going to be on some other planet or something with what you're sitting here speaking about? Where do you think all of this is going to take place?
You're getting into some of the celestial stuff.
I just started to tune in here, and could you help me understand, where do you think, not you, sir, in the black suit, this other gentleman that said about no leaders, the group thing, and all of that. And when I'm listening to him say that there's going to be no leaders and we're just going to all be a group, my first mind went to how parenting, and if we all were just a group in a household and the parents was just involved, how would the kids or the siblings and the children know how to follow with what they need? And I want to know, where do you think that what you're speaking, will take place?
Very good, thank you.
Where and when will this take place?
It's going to take place here, and don't take what I say in absolutes. That's typically Piscean as well. It's not as if we won't have any leaders, because we're leaders here. It's just that people will take more responsibility for the future of the world. And this will occur here, and I'm trying to, what else? She had a question about? Yes, we will still have.
There was a bit of a kind of a celestial question there. Are we going to be on another planet?
Here.
On Earth.
Okay. Yes, the idea is that the Masters of Wisdom are from our own line of development, but there's also, and this is a bit much. This gets a little esoteric. Excuse me for a minute here.
Go ahead.
We think of matter as in 3 states, right, Chuck? Liquid, gaseous, and solid. You've heard of scientists talk about dark matter. There are 4 more states above gaseous, known as etheric. The scientists don't have the name right. They don't know if there's 4 levels, but they know there's something there.
Carillion photography.
Carillion photography, invented by a Russian around the turn of the 19th century, first made us aware that every living thing has an energy field. You've seen those pictures. You see the silhouette of the hand and the light energy coming off of it. Well, that's evidence of your etheric body. And on the etheric planes of matter, there's a lot of activity. Now, if you go to Venus or Mars, or Mercury, one's too hot, one's too cold, you can't live there in the dense physical. But on the etheric planes, those planets are very busy. And what the Ageless Wisdom teaching is proposing is that all of the planets of the system are inhabited. And these are our brethren. We call them space brothers, not aliens, because
Or humans. Ben calls them humans.
humanity is throughout the cosmos. And they visit us regularly. And so on the ethereal planes of matter, there's a lot of activity too. So when you talk about the celestial, I think that may be what she's making reference to as well.
Okay. I mean, I just want to point out that as I said
I know it's a
earlier,
little out there.
I tend to be a little agnostic on these issues. I don't know if there's anything going on out there. Now, I'm not saying there isn't, but as I've said, I've had people on my radio show in the past who have talked about UFOs and who have talked about space aliens and the rest. And my response to that is, buy a ticket for me, fly me there, drive me to it, and show me. And if you show me, I'll believe it.
Oh.
But they've never seen it themselves. So
I'll give you an
I'm
example.
very skeptical of that.
I'll give you an example. We put out a press release in December of 2008 saying that before Maitreya's first television interview, which I guess occurred in January of 2010, there would be a sign. So there were 4 lights that appeared, 2 in the northern hemisphere, 2 in the southern hemisphere, which Share International contended were the Space Brothers, 4 spaceships. You have to suspend disbelief from over here, just humor me. Like 5, 6 football fields across. In the atmosphere. You can see one of them over Boston. If you look in the southwestern sky, you can see the brightest light in the sky, apart from the moon. And if you look at it carefully, its blink is kind of mechanical.
Okay, we have a caller. Hello, you're with us.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I've been listening for a while, and I'm just wondering to know, I can't get a full understanding of it. Who Maestra is supposed to be?
I had a little trouble hearing
Who is
that.
Maitreya? Is that what she's asking?
I guess so, yeah. Why don't we?
Maitreya is the leader of the Masters of Wisdom, the spiritual hierarchy for the planet.
Okay. What I'm saying is, speaking about the Bible, because up to now I haven't heard him said anything about the Bible. The Bible tells us in the heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth showeth forth his handiworks, right? The stars, the moon, and everything was made by God. And the Bible tells us that Jesus in Genesis, he said, "Let us make man," and everything that he did was good, right? So right now, what Maestros has to do with Jesus? I haven't heard them told anything about Jesus yet, about God. God is the creator. God created the heavens, the earth, and everything that was in it. He created man in his own image and his likeness. Did he create Maestros?
Oh, glad you
Absolutely.
I'm glad you
Okay.
brought that up.
Okay.
Yes, Maitreya and the Masters, Chuck, and to the listener, they serve the same Lord we all do. They are merely human beings that are in grad school. We're in kindergarten. So yes, all the other things that she mentioned, the Ageless Wisdom teaching respects and is actually complementary to. It's meant to complement people's faith or non-faith, if they're agnostic. And so Jesus is seen as a member of the hierarchy, and Maitreya is seen as also as a member of the hierarchy who overshadowed Krishna, Buddha, Jesus in the last 3 years of his life, and so on. And this is something, too, that the Masters...
And by the way, I want to just clarify, I'm not agnostic.
Oh,
I mean,
oh,
that's
no.
okay.
Oh,
just on that
yes.
one issue, on the
That's
issue
okay.
Certainly.
of outer space, I tend to be. But no, I tend to be, I modestly try to be a believer like everyone.
You know,
Many
there's
people.
no reason why you should believe if you don't believe. I mean, we're not here to
Right.
convince you of anything. We happen to believe it.
Now,
And
I want to
UFOs.
talk a little bit about the background of Share International. Not the specific manifestation of the group today, but going back to the Theosophical Society, the Spiritism of the late 19th century.
Ancient wisdom teachers.
Helena Blavatsky was a Russian mystic, and then her disciple Annie Besant, and then her disciple Alice Bailey. This is who founded the Lucis Trust or the Lucifer Trust. This is
The Lucis.
now it's originally it was Lucifer. The name
Although
was changed.
Lucifer is an angel, so
Okay, it was
Yeah.
the name was changed.
Yeah.
I think in the 1950s.
Yeah,
And that there's a connection there between the meditation room at the United Nations and it's sort of a lot of UN figures, including Robert Mueller, were involved with it. and it's seen as kind of a, I know you guys don't like to use the word religion.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say, how about we call it faith? It's like a one world faith. Was Julian Huxley involved?
I don't know, but I do know that the Ageless Wisdom teaching goes back some 100,000 years.
Sure.
And it's considered like the basis for our modern science and philosophy and religion. If you go forward as you did and mention the figures that you did, Blavatsky was the first one in the relatively modern era to discuss the Masters of Wisdom. And it again isn't really a faith, it's more a teaching. And so that's why we say to people, don't believe anything that we tell you. Just take what you want, as I'm sure that last caller did. She can take what she wants and toss away the rest. Only what resonates with you.
Now, Blavatsky, in her book, Isis Revealed, was one of the originators of the idea of an Aryan race. In fact, she coined the word Aryan. It had been not heard of before. It's almost a manufactured term. And that the Aryan race would become superhuman, the Übermensch. They would have superpower. They would be blonde-haired, blue-eyed. They'd live to be 200 years old, super strength. And that was the basis of National Socialism.
This is a misunderstanding. When they said Aryan, there have been several ages of man, and Aryan is not referring to Hitler's vision of the Aryan race
Has
at
nothing
all.
to do with Hitler.
I
think Hitler thought it did. I mean, the
Well, I'm
Nazis,
sure he borrowed it.
the
like
Nazis
he borrowed
completely
the
embraced.
swastika.
Yes,
Right. Well, that's another piece that was there too.
That was a complete misunderstanding. There have been several ages of man, Chuck, and the Ageless Wisdom teaching talks roughly about the Lemurian age, where the physical body was perfected, the Atlantean era. Each of these lasted several million years. Where
Millions of years.
Did I say thousands?
No, you didn't.
Oh, okay.
I'm just emphasizing.
Which where we perfected the astral or the emotional body, and now we're in this era where we're perfecting the mental body, so that we'll be more detached and less emotional, and that sort of thing. So when they talked about Aryan, they were not referring to white people. They were not referring to anything having to do with Hitler's vision. That's a complete misunderstanding.
But
Well,
we are in the Aryan age.
I understood. And just to, I would take issue with you only in that I think she was explicitly talking about white people in that book.
You mean Blavatsky?
Yeah.
I would disagree with you, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree.
Okay.
And we are only in the first 100,000 years of our cycle.
You seem to also be, speaking of which, you seem to be very much into the evolutionary concept.
Yes.
Yes.
As opposed to the idea of creationism and
Yes.
the
Rebirth.
idea that man was created in the image of God and boom, here we came.
Exactly. The plan for humanity, the plan for this planet, with a capital P, and most people don't even think the planet has a plan, is evolution. It's all about evolution, and that's what it has always been about.
But this is where I think that it diverges from the Judeo-Christian moral code, which holds that man and women, and it says women too, by the way, in the book of Genesis, were created in the image of God. And it was that idea that was picked up by the founding fathers of the United States, which said that all men are created equal. Now, if we're evolving or devolving, as it were, then we're not equal.
Yes,
we're
we
on
are.
different levels. We're in different parts
are,
of the chain, and
absolutely.
you're embracing a theory of breeding.
That's a great point you made. People, individual people, are at different points. We call it a POE, point of evolution. Everyone, we all have different POEs. We're all in a different point on our developmental level, but we all...
Like Maitreya has been here for millions of years
Yes.
and is at a very high level.
But just to finish that thought, but we're all divine beneath that. We all have the same divinity, equal divinity beneath that, but on a superficial personality level, we all are at different developmental points.
Well, we have different skills and
Yes,
some,
More than
Exactly.
skills,
and
though.
some oh, sure.
That's a
I
good
mean,
reflection.
You know, like I think there's, there's a difference between Albert Einstein and your high school science teacher.
Exactly.
It's because Albert Einstein wasn't born for the first time. As Albert Einstein, he had many lives to become that educated, become that intelligent, to be able to give us what he gave us.
Well, let's talk
that's a good theory.
about that a little bit then. That's a good point, because there's basically 5 major expansions of consciousness that human beings go through over hundreds of thousands of lives. And roughly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, in the first one, you sort of get control of the physical body. In the second one, I believe you get control of the emotional body. And by the third initiation, your soul begins to speak directly through your personality. By the fourth initiation, you have the spirit, soul, and then threefold man on the dense physical plane. I know I'm packing a lot in here. The spirit begins to speak directly through your personality. That's the fourth, and by the fifth, you become a master of wisdom. So when you're talking about an Albert Einstein, he was a second-degree initiate. And the average for humanity still is like what?
Below.
It's like 0.4. It's below a 1. Well, it's well below 1. It's like 0.04 or something like that.
But the age of Aquarius truly will become where we all become initiates.
So in a sense, you could describe this, we have a caller, but I just want to say there could be many Maitreya's. Okay, hello, you're with us.
Yes, sir. I would like to, first of all, salute Mr. Minot. I'm Greg Eugene, and we've had several conversations about the healing powers of the kind of things that he does. I am curious about the Maitreya.
Kind of things Maitreya does, not me.
The Maitreya, in terms of, right now we are in such a turmoil in our culture. I mean, things are just really out of, just crazy. I mean, let's talk about Donald Trump and the kind of things he's promoting. And so I wondered how, indeed, the Maitreya might be introduced. So how would the Maitreya play out? I mean, are we talking about going back into a socialist kind of where everybody's taking care of each other, or what exactly would the fallout be with the Maitreya entering our lives? And I'm trying to hang up the phone so I can hear the answer.
Thank you. Let me just respond first, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Right ahead.
I don't think socialism is everybody sharing everything. That's just not the reality of it. It can only be implemented by force. It's the ultimate in authoritarianism. Individuals, we naturally share with other people. That's part of who we are. We don't need the government, and socialism is government. We help other people because it's in our interest to help other people.
Exactly.
Because we have exchange of ideas. Now, as far as Donald Trump goes, he's asserting American sovereignty. That's what you get, when you get down to it, that's what he's about. He's saying the national government, which represents the people of the United States, should act in the interests of the people of the United States. And that may not always look good, but that's why we have a government. That's why any nation in the world has a government. And if a government can't do that for its own people, then it doesn't deserve to be in power. So I don't think that that's a matter of turmoil. I think he's trying to say what is in the best interest of this country, and he's presenting himself as a candidate so we can decide whether we believe that. That's what elections are. That's what's called democracy.
Trump is just a symptom. We're looking at the larger picture here. The larger picture is, Chuck, that when you have this change of age, which we're well aware of from the Piscean to the Aquarian, these changes happen every 2,000 years, and it's the same chaos.
Very chaotic.
It happens every time. When one energy is going out and the other's coming in, you naturally have a chaotic situation. And it's passing. The chaos is something that's passing. And what you said is going to remain.
Well, what is the chaos? I mean,
the chaos is our lives. Look we still have wars on this planet.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The chaos of the 20th
is the
century
inequality,
was
people starving. The chaos is people are suffering. They're in pain. They don't know who to turn to. They don't know what to do on this earth. They are looking for help.
Well, I think the chaos of the 20th century was 2 world wars and economic manipulation, the Depression. The chaos of our century, I would suggest, is the jihad.
Absolutely, that's part of the symptom.
But what we're saying is that these are symptoms of a greater movement that's going on. And the masters, for instance, Chuck, if you see the floor here, they would look out over it and see a plane of all that is occurring at once, and they see things rising and falling, and they can tell which energies. Thank you. Which movements are important and which are not. The things that are most important are people coming together to work for peace and justice, and as we said, sharing for the principles.
Okay, and we're reaching toward the end, and I think we're finally getting to the crux of something. I should have you back. I mean, we're just at the point now where we
have a lot more to say.
Yeah, we've reached the plane, which is, how do we address the great crisis of our time, and what has worked and what can work, and how we should identify the nature of that crisis very specifically. We're just getting there now, but we're at the end of the program. Let people know how they can find out more about what you're doing.
If they're interested in anything we've talked about and want to know more, they can look at on the computer at shareinternational.org, share-international.org, or share-international.usa. And
don't forget social media.
And so you say that.
Oh, okay. We're also on Facebook. You can look us up. And
your radio show.
And well, that's separate. Not representing Share International per se, but we also have a podcast that we call Share on the Air Radio that we just started in October. And it's doesn't represent Share International as an international organization, but it's some members talking about the principles. So Share on the Air Radio is on Facebook, Share International is on Facebook, Benjamin Krem's on Facebook, and of course, as Pat mentioned, www.share-international.org. And you can find us also on Twitter if you look for us, and other social media as well.
Amazon has all the books that Ben ever wrote, and they're quite fascinating. And there's a monthly magazine that he's the editor
hold that
of.
up. Hold that up.
Done?
That's right.
No, you can hold it up. Hold it up. Hold it up. There we go.
This magazine talks about things that are happening on the planet as far as fracking and carbon monoxide and dioxide and how to get rid of it and how we can better our
social
planet.
Justice.
Social justice. So many topics. Great magazine.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining me.
Oh,
it was fun.
You're welcome. We're honored to be guests on your show, Chuck.
Okay.
And we have a lot more to say, you're right.
I just feel like we're touching it.